the entire dashboard which we have for not only the Vodafone group, but including my own dashboard here, comes from HR Shared Services. So we capture key matrices here. In terms of talent acquisition, it's about the basics: turnaround time, the cost per hire, quality per hire, early attrition. We also capture other details like attrition here. We capture talent movements, growth, high potential movements and growths, a senior manager, succession planning, etc. So the entire MI comes to the executive council or the leadership team through HR Shared Services here. The other part of the value spectrum which HR Shared Services partners us is in preparing contracts. So we've got a number of contract employees with us, and we include contract employees in our headcount. So, I mean, it's more of a semantics issue. We do need to take into account technicalities, in terms of how do you show contract employees here. But for our budgeting purposes, we do take them into account. So HR Shared Services manages the employee budgets for us as well. So it's about moving in the entire value proposition. And interestingly, HR Shared Services is only 1.5 years old in our organization. Our organization itself is fairly young. It's about 5 years in India, and HR Shared Services is 1.5 year old. Now, coming back, in terms of some of the business challenges which we face, I'll talk about the business challenges, priorities, and I'll talk about how do we address it collaboratively as a team. Before I do that, I'll just spend a little more time on the 3-box model here. So in the 3-box model, 1 box is HR business partners. Our key expectation from an HR business partner is they work with the respective heads of business to ensure that the people strategy or the people plan is prepared. So they're responsible for design and deployment of the people plan, covering the entire spectrum of HR activities, whether it's talent acquisition, learning and development, talent engagement, talent retention, rewards, etc. They are supported by the centers of excellence. One center of excellence being talent acquisition, who is responsible for the actual delivery of the talent strategy to the business partners. Second, we have learning and development, which takes care of both technical as well as managerial and behavioral capability building. And it also takes care of managing our online academies and managing tie-ups with institutes. In fact, we've just institutionalized some tie-up with some of the leading institutes, management institutes, for our top talent and our leadership roles here. Then we have rewards and organization effectiveness. We've got HR operations, which takes care of our payroll and statutory compliance. That is still managed by a retained organization here. Employee files are managed by our HR Shared Services. And HR Shared Services have spoken to you, how do they deliver value to us? The interesting part here is, how does our internal customer see us? We are the face, the retained HR organization is the face to the customer. The HR business partners are the face to the customer, but delivery happens through centers of excellence and HR Shared Services. So they provide the backbone for delivery here. So when we go out to the customers with a value proposition, we go up with a very joint up proposition. So keeping that in mind, I think the early challenges which we faced was, since there wouldn't be a direct reporting line and the structure was sort of extremely new, how do we ensure that the process is joined up and it's a well coordinated effort? So that has been one challenge which we came across in the early days, where the teams were not completely aligned. While the SLAs were completely described in black and white in paper here, it's not as much about being prescriptive here in this case, but also being aligned and joined up. Scalability was the other issue. And today living in a VUCA world is a ground reality. While we have a workforce plan, our workforce plan covers only about 25 to 30% of our actual requirements for the year. The rest of the requirements happen on a fairly ad hoc basis. By ad hoc, it's not literally ad hoc. We get a quarterly plan, which is a more realistic plan, which puts a lot of pressure on the talent acquisition team here. How do you scale up at very short periods of time? So all of a sudden, now for example, if I have about 1,000 people I've got visibility of 1,000 people I need to hire, 1,000 roles which I need to hire in 1 year. But I know for a fact there are 2,000 business approvals which are underway. Now these business approvals will come in on a quarter-to-quarter basis, and at a very short turnaround time, we are expected to go to market, hire skills, and all skills are not plain vanilla skills. So you've got some extremely technical and niche skills here in our technology shared services and our networks business here, which aren't that easy to get in the market. We use predictive analytics to see what are the trends, patterns here, and what are the likely results and outcomes which we can get in what period of time. That helps us to an extent. So there we engage business analytics as well as HR shared services to give us that level of data, which helps us deliver value to the business proactively rather than reactively. That also helps us create a talent pipeline. So keeping that in mind, I think managing growth, sure. So managing growth in volume and value, I think is one key challenge which we have and a priority for us as well. Continue to leverage productivity and efficiencies through internal and external benchmarking. We keep benchmarking our HR shared services to ensure we are best in class and we are able to deliver value to the business here. Ensuring sustainability, which I've spoken about, is another key driver, and leveraging talent, both technical and leadership here. So in the entire process, 70 to 75% of the talent which we have within HR shared services comes from the HR function. And I think some of our esteemed panelists have also spoken. It's not about ensuring that some of the bottom rung resources are given roles in HR SSC or operating roles, but it's also ensuring some of our top talent gets a rotational responsibility there. So that's one area which we are leveraging, and it's working quite well for us. Driving governance and compliance in line with our core values is another important part where both teams work together to drive results. Some of the key milestones which we've achieved here is our growth has come through both expansion of our current business lines, adding new business lines, moving up the value chain, but has also come through two mergers, or rather one merger and one acquisition. It's come from a merger from Vodafone India's operating company, as well as the cable and wireless business which we've acquired worldwide, including India operations. In the last 15 months, we've added 5,000 FTEs here. Our diversity hiring, which was a challenge for us earlier, we've increased it by 6% in 1 year. Our succession planning, and that's where HR SSC supports us with a lot of data, is we've achieved a 70-30 model here, where 70% of our successors within the next 12 months will come internally. And that robust data mechanism where we track employees, we've actually got employee profiles on Taleo and on an internal system called Evo. So if I need to identify 3 successors for a potential managerial vacancies, I will have 5 names which will pop up on the screen, and then I can filter and screen and decide whether I need to call them for an interview or not. Technical academies and line manager capability building programs leveraging the 70-20 model I've spoken about have been some of the key milestones which we've been able to achieve collaboratively, working with business, HR and HR shared services together. Key learnings, proactivity is what I've spoken about. Aligning stakeholder expectations, I think we've already covered some of that here. And also the need at times to be thick-skinned, because it's not the 99% of the things which you do well, but that 1% things which you don't do well, and that gets escalated all over the globe, and I literally mean that. Focus on sustainability and scalability, and productivity, efficiency and governance, making it a part of the employee DNA, has been some of the key learnings here. And the focus on the talent strategy, the 70-30 model, which is the build versus buy. Working collaboratively with data, leveraging our employee database, and ensuring that we are able to focus on developing 70% of our talent for future roles and buying, or rather acquiring 30% of the talent going ahead in the future, is what has been some of our key learnings. In the recent 4.5 to 5 years of our journey as a part of shared services. So thank you very much. More than happy to take on any questions.
Thank you, Ajay. I've already got our first and final warning that we needed to end off by 5:40. But I would just like it still, this is a very useful presentation as it saw a different perspective altogether. Any questions that you all have from the audience here? One.
Thank you so much for sharing your journey in your respective orgs, and my question is to the panel and also to the previous panels. I think throughout the day we've seen challenges that you face, the resistance. Right now, obviously, the benefits that you're reaping. In line with the theme of the conference, I have a question in my mind that what does the role of the contact method, like two HR shared services from employees, play in employee experience? So, for example, I'm sure we have a toll-free number or an Ask HR or something like that, an alias or a ticket that we need to raise, or maybe a walk-up. I don't know. I think every company has their own best practices, whatever works for them. So do you think there is a value or a role that these methods, these source of contacts play towards an employee experience at all, one versus the other?
Yeah, I'll probably answer it in two parts. Yes, there is a role where it plays in enhancing employee experience. We keep doing our quarterly employee surveys on that in terms of what's the value which we are getting out of it. And we keep getting fairly robust MIR. I think where it has helped us, is a lot of the turnaround time for addressing basic queries here in terms of how do I fill in my, for a new joiner, how do I fill in my travel joining forms here? How do I apply for my PF transfer from my previous organization, or stuff like that, or how do I know my PF status? So these queries get resolved within 48 hours. There's a turnaround time, 48 working hours, where we need to resolve that. Whereas HR earlier, the dependency, when we had a generalist structure in place, the dependency on an HR business partner was extremely high and subject to availability of the HR business partner. So the turnaround time as well as scalability has had a great impact, especially in Ask HR services. But at the end of the day, there's also the employee perception. Sometimes people like to talk to people. Yeah. They don't like to talk to a machine. Correct. Or to a ticket number.
So the human touch,
So the human touch, so it's also about changing the mindsets, but mindsets are changing gradually. It's something like when ATMs were introduced initially, people still preferred going to a cashier. A lot of people are more comfortable going to a bank physically, withdrawing money over there, rather than going to an ATM or online banking for that matter. So while of course it's been a sea change and we've seen the change in turnaround time, quality, etc., the same is applicable for HR shared services.
Thank you.
We have a lease on live for 5 minutes. So any other questions? I had one question to ask all three of them, but any other questions from the audience? Okay.
On that last question, I can just say that we were not in a hurry to implement an employee help desk. As earlier speakers were saying, HR shared service is all about change management. Now, just because I implemented a shared services, if I say to the employees from tomorrow, don't walk into HR, call a phone or send an email, you're going to have some challenges. So we took our time. As I said, this is our 5th year of journey. Only this year, thanks to PeopleStrong, we started having a call-based support. Otherwise, we didn't have a call-based support so far. We started with an email-based support just about a year and a half back. So first 3 years it was more business as usual. Then of course slowly started gradually bringing in the help desk concept and then trying to make it less human touch and more of a technology. So it should be a gradual one, and I don't think we should do it overnight just because we've embraced a new service called HR shared services.
I think similarly, if you look at, I think the technological intervention, correct, I think it's all inclusive. So if you ask me, 95% of my offering to the employees today is online and very, very smart online offerings, correct? For example, right from leave application to PF withdrawal, because we are government, but in the last mile. So everything is online. Only when they get stuck, maybe because of the technology issue or sometimes the process issue, they come back to the business partner. You have the business partner articulated in the website in terms of who you should go to. So I think employees are also getting this experience. For example, we have the mobile app now. You can actually apply your leave, while in the train or in your vehicle. So I think all of these people are also appreciating, saying that I think with the time you're changing. Naturally, there'll be issues, but if you are able to respond to that issue a little quickly, I think they're happy as well. You have to set the expectations right at the time.
Thank you. The question that I have to all three of you all is that hindsight is 2020. You all have been through this journey. You've been through the ups and downs and all. If when you look back, there's one thing that you'd say now, if I had the opportunity, I would not do or I would do in this journey, what would that be?
If you want my answer, I'll refer back to slide. Probably, I don't think any one of us will have a choice to go back to the, let's say, the 7 years or 10 years back, direction. What we can do is, in fact, it's not a casting stone. We can always balance it out, correct? Because this question versus the, human spurge versus e-spurge, correct? There's always a E today. And people appreciate that. But I think sometimes there are some issues where you also require the conversational, kind of offerings, which you also offer as a platform. And if people are aware of it, that you can actually go to human, QX than the e-spurge, I think they also appreciate that. So I don't think we will have to go back. We'll have to only go further because we are scaling up.
Okay, on a lighter note, if I were to go back in the time machine, I don't think I would have joined shared services. That's on a lighter note because it is quite stressful. It can be a very painful experience, but certainly, of course, as they say, you have to stand up to the challenge and run with it on a light note. But on a serious note, my experience is that, we talk about when you're doing transitioning, the shift and lift or the lift and shift. So if I were to start all over again, I would rather do it in pilot phases with a few companies, few businesses, and then go to the next phase rather than taking everything and trying to do it. And when you're trying to acquire, as I said, I would rather first standardize processes, standardize systems, harmonize all the compensation benefits, then bring them into the larger organization, which you call the shift and then the lift. We have been following in some cases the lift and then trying to do cleanup and build on the fly. It's been a big challenge. So that's what something I would have done differently.
And I'll just answer this. What is it that we would like to do differently, and what has been our one singular key learning? The big ticket learning which we had is the employee